Welcome back to Science Corner, everyone. For today's deep dive, we'll be exploring a topic I think we've all wondered about at some point. Seashells.
That's right. We see them all the time at the beach, but most of us probably don't think too much about the science behind them.
Yeah, and they're so beautiful and intricate. I know I've picked up more than my fair share wondering how something like that could even exist.
Well, you've come to the right place. We'll be covering just that, everything from how they're made to why they come in so many shapes and sizes and colors and, well, you get the idea.
So, to get started, what exactly is a seashell?
Okay, so basically a seashell is the hard, protective outer layer created by an animal that lives in the sea, most commonly mollusks.
Mollusks.
Right, so we're talking about snails, clams, oysters, all those kinds of creatures. And the shells we find on the beach, those are usually empty.
Oh, okay, so the animal that made the shell, it's usually long gone.
Yeah, it's either died and decomposed or something else ate it.
Interesting. So it's sort of like their skeleton, but on the outside?
Exactly. It's called an exoskeleton.
Right.
And it's mostly made of calcium carbonate, which is a type of mineral. Though there are some shells, like those from crabs, that also contain chitin.
Chitin, is that like what insect exoskeletons are made of?
You got it. It's a tough, flexible material, but not quite as durable as calcium carbonate, which is why we usually only find mollusk shells intact.
That makes sense. But speaking of other creatures, aren't there other marine animals besides mollusks and crabs that make shells?
Oh, absolutely. There are barnacles with their hard plates and horseshoe crabs with their, well, horseshoe-shaped shells.
Right. And I've also seen those delicate-looking shells that are kind of heart-shaped.
Ah, you're probably thinking of brachiopods. They look similar to mollusk shells, but they're actually a completely different group of animals.
Wow, so many different types of shells. You also mentioned sea urchins before. What about their shells?
Good point. So sea urchins actually have a really interesting skeleton called a test. It's made up of these tightly interlocking plates, and it's often quite intricate and delicate. And then, of course, there are the crustaceans.
Oh, right, like crabs and lobsters.
Exactly. They shed their outer coverings as they grow, and these discarded exoskeletons, or exuviae, can sometimes wash up on the beach looking a bit like shells.
That's right. I remember seeing those and being confused. And what about cephalopods? Don't some of them have shells too?
That's another good question. Yes, some cephalopods, like the nautilus, have these beautiful external chambered shells. But others, like squid and octopuses, have either internal shells or no shells at all.
That's a lot of variety, and it makes me wonder, how do these shells, especially the ones made of calcium carbonate, get to be so strong? They seem so delicate.
Ah, that's one of the most fascinating things about them. You see, while the calcium carbonate crystals themselves aren't super strong on their own, in shells, they're combined with soft biological matter, mostly proteins.
So it's not just the mineral, but how it's put together.
Precisely. Imagine it like a biological glue. These proteins reinforce the calcium carbonate, making it much tougher than you might think. And it's not just a random mix either. Recent research has shown that these soft clumps actually get incorporated right into the crystal structure through chemical interactions.
Wow, so they're not just trapped inside, they're actually part of the crystal, but how does that make the shell stronger?
Well, think of it like this. Those chemical interactions create what we call compressive strain in the crystal. It's kind of like squeezing something from the inside, making it more difficult to break apart.
Ah, so like pre-stressed concrete.
Exactly. It's a really clever way to make something strong and lightweight. And we've actually been able to see this happening in real time.
Oh, really? How did they do that?
Researchers used a technique called atomic force microscopy, and they were able to watch these tiny spheres of organic molecules called micelles getting squeezed as the crystal grew around them.
Wow, that's incredible. So the squeezing creates that compressive strain, making the shell tougher.
You got it. It was a real breakthrough in our understanding of how shells get their strength. So we've covered what seashells are made of and how they get their strength. But how are they actually made in the first place?
Yeah, that's a great question. It must be a pretty complex process.
It is. So the key player here is the mantle, which is an outer layer of tissue in mollusks.
Okay, so the mantle is basically the shell-making factory.
Exactly. It secretes the materials that make up the shell, proteins and minerals. And it's important to remember that those proteins aren't just there for structure. They also play a key role in determining which minerals are deposited and where.
So they're like little architects directing the whole process.
Exactly. Think of it like building a house. The proteins are the blueprints and the scaffolding, and then the calcium carbonate comes in and fills everything in, like the bricks and mortar.
That's a great analogy. And speaking of calcium carbonate, you mentioned earlier that it can exist in different forms.
Right. The two main forms found in seashells are calcite and aragonite. They have the same chemical formula, but their atoms are arranged differently, which gives them different properties.
And don't these different forms show up in different layers of the shell?
Yes. Most mollusk shells have three main layers. The outermost layer is mostly protein, and it's often pretty rough. Then there's the middle layer, which is made of calcite, and this layer is usually the thickest and toughest, providing most of the shell strength.
And then there's that beautiful, shiny inner layer. What's that called again?
That's the nacre, or mother of pearl. It's made of aragonite, and it's known for its smooth, iridescent appearance. That iridescence comes from the way the aragonite crystals are arranged in thin, overlapping layers, kind of like tiles on a roof. And the nacre also adds to the shell's strength and helps prevent cracks from spreading.
Wow, so each layer has a specific purpose. It's like a natural composite material.
Exactly. And as the animal grows, the shell grows with it. New material is added at the edges, creating those growth rings you see on many shells. Those rings are kind of like a diary of the animal's life. They can tell us about its age and the conditions it lived in.
That's incredible. It's like each shell is a unique record of an animal's life. Okay, so we've talked about the structure of seashells, but what about the processes that create them at a molecular level?
Right, so that's where biomineralization comes in. It's the process of how living organisms create minerals. In the case of seashells, it all starts with the mollusk secreting a protein matrix.
And those proteins are what control the formation of the calcium carbonate crystals, right?
You got it. They bind to calcium ions in the seawater and direct them to form those specific crystal structures, either calcite or aragonite, depending on the type of protein and where it's secreted.
So it's all about precise control at the molecular level. It's mind-blowing how these tiny creatures can orchestrate such complex chemistry.
It really is. And that brings us to one of the most striking things about seashells. Their incredible diversity. I mean, the variety of shapes, sizes, and colors is just astonishing.
You're telling me, it makes you wonder, how does all that variation come about?
Well, a lot of it comes down to genetics. Different species of mollusks have different genes that code for the proteins that control shell formation. But the environment also plays a role.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, things like water temperature, food availability, and even salinity can affect how fast a shell grows and its final size.
Makes sense. But what about all the different shapes? Some are spiraled, some are flat, some have spikes, some are smooth.
Right. Well, a lot of that has to do with the animal's lifestyle and the environment it lives in. For instance, bivalves that burrow in sand often have smooth, streamlined shells, while those that live on rocky shores might have thicker, more rugged shells with ridges or spines for protection.
Oh, so it's about adapting to their surroundings.
Exactly. And then there's the classic spiral shape of many snail shells. That's actually a really efficient way to grow a shell because it allows the animal to increase its living space without changing its overall shape.
And I've noticed that most of those spiral shells seem to coil in the same direction. Is there a reason for that?
That's a good observation. The vast majority of spiral shells are what we call dextral, meaning they coil clockwise. Left coiling or sinistral shells are much rarer, which makes them quite interesting to collectors.
Oh, I'll have to keep an eye out for those next time at the beach. But what about all the amazing colors and patterns? How did those come about?
Well, those colors are due to pigments that are incorporated into the shell as it grows. Sometimes these pigments come from the animal's diet, and sometimes they're produced by the mantle itself.
So it's like they're painting their own shells.
In a way, yes. And those patterns can serve a variety of purposes. Some are for camouflage, helping the animal blend into its surroundings. Others might be for attracting mates or even warning off predators.
It's fascinating how something so seemingly simple can have so much complexity behind it.
Absolutely. And don't forget about size. Shell size can vary tremendously depending on the species and the environment.
Oh, yeah, from tiny little shells to those giant clams you see in coral reefs.
Exactly. And some shells can live for an incredibly long time. The ocean quahogs, for example, can live for hundreds of years.
Hundreds of years, wow.
Yep. In fact, one ocean quahog, nicknamed Ming, was found to be over 500 years old.
That's older than the United States. It's incredible to think that something so seemingly fragile can endure for so long.
It really is. And those long lifespans make shells especially valuable to scientists because they can tell us a lot about past environmental conditions. It's like having a time capsule from the ocean.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground, but I'm curious, are there any practical uses for seashells besides just being pretty to look at?
Oh, absolutely. In the natural world, Hermit crabs use empty shells as homes to protect their soft abdomens. It's a great example of recycling in nature.
That's right. And didn't people use shells for all sorts of things in the past?
They did. In some cultures, shells were used as currency, and they were also used as tools, like scoops, containers, and even weapons.
That's amazing. And they were also used for jewelry and decoration, right?
Definitely. People have been decorating with shells for thousands of years, and some cultures believe shells have spiritual significance.
It's incredible how versatile they are. But with all these uses, both natural and human-made, do you think we need to be careful about how many shells we take from the beach?
That's a very important point. While collecting a few shells here and there might not seem like a big deal, large-scale shell harvesting can actually harm coastal ecosystems. It can lead to erosion, and it can also deprive animals like hermit crabs of the shells they need for shelter.
So it's best to leave the shells where they are for the sake of the environment and the creatures that rely on them.
Exactly. We can appreciate their beauty without taking them away from the beach.
Well said. So, to wrap things up, what are some of the key takeaways about seashells that you'd like our listeners to remember?
I think the main thing to remember is that they're not just pretty objects. They're complex structures created by living organisms. They're incredibly strong and durable. They come in a stunning variety of shapes and colors, and they play a vital role in marine ecosystems.
They're also a record of the animal's life and a window into the past.
Exactly. So next time you're at the beach, take a moment to really look at the shells you find. Think about the amazing journey they've been on and the intricate processes that created them. Who knows what stories they might tell?
That's a beautiful way to put it. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your expertise on this fascinating topic.
It was my pleasure.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us for another deep dive here on Science Corner. We hope you've enjoyed exploring the world of seashells with us. Until next time, keep exploring.